The Galaxy S26 comes with a slightly larger battery and a bigger display compared to the last year, but beyond that, not much has changed. This year, Samsung is once again splitting the phone into two versions, Exynos globally and Snapdragon in North America and China. And to see how the Galaxy S26 really performs and how these two variants compare, I decided to document a full day with Maria here in the beautiful city of Vienna. I will be using both phones the way I normally do, comparing the photos, performance, and most importantly, the battery life, to see which one actually comes out on top. I put a 5G SIM card in both phones and charged them to 100% in the morning. They are both updated to the latest April version. For the first part of the test, I'm going to navigate with Google Maps on my bicycle to the city town hall, where we are going to visit the Book Theater Open Day and the Styria Festival. It is a sunny day in Vienna, and I took this video with the main lens. You may not know it, but different processors affect video and image quality. Here, the Exynos is more exposed, while the Snapdragon is more contrasty. For image processing, the difference is less obvious. It does seem that Samsung managed to make the color science closer between these two variants. The Galaxy S26 has the same telephoto lens that Samsung has used in the past few years. It performs fine, especially when there is enough light. Here too, the colors on the Snapdragon are more vivid and slightly muted on the Exynos. In this photo with the telephoto lens, the colors are closer to each other, both for the Japanese cherry blossoms and the sky. After around half an hour of cycling, I finally arrived in the city to meet Maria. Right now, the Exynos has 94% battery left, while the Snapdragon has 92%. Before we start taking pictures, this is Maria in this specific lighting, taken by a Sony camera for reference. Looking at this picture, the Exynos, in my opinion, did a better job with skin tones. It has more magenta, which is closer to how she actually looked compared to the warmer tone on the Snapdragon. In this ultra-wide shot, you can see the problem with Exynos being slightly overexposed and losing highlights. For this shot, the sky colors also differ. The Exynos has a bit of green, while the Snapdragon is more vivid. We sat down for a coffee, and meanwhile I put both phones to play YouTube Shorts on 5G while we enjoyed the spring weather outdoors. By the time we finished coffee, it was 1:30 p.m. and the Exynos was 2% higher at 86% compared to 84% on a Snapdragon. We then decided to go to the Styria Festival nearby at the city town hall, where people were wearing traditional clothes and day drinking like true Austrians. I'm also tracking our walk using the Samsung Health app. Styria is a lovely region in the south of Austria where people often wear lederhosen during festivals. Here too, the Exynos variant is more exposed compared to the more contrasty look on the Snapdragon. For photos, there are no surprises either. The Exynos made Maria slightly more magenta and Snapdragon warmer. The same goes for my skin tone, and I personally prefer the Exynos in this case. Also notice the Exynos sometimes raises shadows more, as you can see in this picture, which can create a bit of a reverse vignetting at the edges. For portrait photos here, I actually found the Snapdragon doing a slightly better job. The Exynos variant is cutting Maria's hair quite aggressively here. But overall, the differences between the two versions are not dramatic and the colors are very close to each other. The same goes for video in this case. If you want to make the colors even more closer, you can use log and then color grade the footage yourself, as I'll do in a second. One of the reasons that you also want to use Galaxy phones is the great camera app that they have. Right now, Maria is shooting in log both on Galaxy S26 Exynos and Galaxy S26 Snapdragon. Right now, I am using a microphone from the sponsor of today's video, Saramonic. The microphone itself is quite simple and compact. There are two microphones on the device. There is a receiver that you can use by USB-C to connect to your phone, and there's also a dead cat included in the device if you want to do some noise cancellations for the wind. Of course, I can be further from the camera when I use a dedicated microphone. Now you're hearing me from the dedicated microphone, but if we switch to the normal microphone from the camera, you can see that the quality is not that great.
This microphone is ultralight at 5 grams. You can use it handheld, and also it supports noise cancellation.
I did record all of these with the noise cancellation included in the device that you can activate by just clicking on the receiver once. And thanks to Saramonic for sponsoring this video. We finished the walk and went inside the booked theater, where the building was completely open to explore for free because of its 250 years anniversary. The indoor lighting was very warm, and this was a great place to test the cameras of the Galaxy S26. I took this picture using the new virtual reflector feature to light the face a bit more, and I really like the result. Here I used portrait mode, and both phones did a good job processing the hair. I also prefer Maria's skin tone on the Exynos, while on a Snapdragon I find the highlights slightly overblown. The same goes for portrait mode at 3x zoom. Despite the fact that the telephoto sensor is small, the Galaxy still managed to create a very pleasing portrait photo. Of course, because of the open day, the scene was super crowded, but the good thing is that the default gallery app on Samsung does a great job erasing people from the scene. Of course, there are some AI artifacts if you look closely, but it is a nice feature for a quick Instagram share. There was even a free performance on the stage, which was quite fun too. Here, the video processing is very different in terms of exposure, noise, and colors. The good news is that I noticed the lens shift from the main camera to the telephoto has been greatly improved on the Galaxy S26, which was one of the main pain points before. And this is the performance of the ultra-wide lens in low light. It is still rather impressive considering the tiny sensor on the phone, and it does seem Samsung improved low light performance with their new processing engine. After taking a lot of videos, I did notice both phones were getting warm. I checked the temperature and they were both around 38 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 100 to 101 degrees Fahrenheit. They both also had strong signal indoors. The theater was closing, so we went outside to take the selfie. Unfortunately, the selfie camera on the Galaxy is still rather tight. For this ultra-wide shot, I find them very similar and borderline impossible to differentiate. One thing Samsung did not improve is blurry photos of pets on the Galaxy S26. I took pictures of this random doggo, and unfortunately it was still blurry when it was moving around. Then we went to eat sushi for dinner, and I put both phones to play YouTube videos on 5G. Right now, the Exynos was at 51%, while the Snapdragon was at 48% battery left. By the time we finished food and were ready to go home, the Exynos was at 46%, while the Snapdragon was at 44%. I then decided to take some pictures from Prata Park at night. First thing I noticed was that on the telephoto lens, moving subjects were very blurry. It is a bit better on the main lens, but it's still not great. I know there's a feature to limit shutter speed, but I definitely do not want to do that, and I do not think that is a real solution. For video, the good news is that there is almost no light reflection, unlike iPhone and Pixel phones. The bad news is that the tiny sensor cannot really take great photos at night. Right now, the only compact phones with proper large sensors are Xiaomi 17 and iPhone 17 Pro. I really hope on the Galaxy S27 we see a better sensor for low light. After that, I took the train back home as it was getting late. When I got home, I uploaded all photos using Google Photos to the cloud. It was a total of 3 GB of photos and videos, and by then, the Exynos was at 22%, while the Snapdragon was at 21%. I also ran a quick Geekbench benchmark just to see how the phones perform with the latest updates. The Snapdragon still had a better single-core performance, to be exact, about 17% better. In multi-core, they were very close though and almost identical, not that anyone actually needs that much power on their phone. I was very careful during the test to make sure neither phone used more screen time, and as you can see, the Exynos used 3 hours and 52 minutes, while the Snapdragon used 3 hours and 51 minutes. The test was quite heavy with lots of video recording, background uploads, and GPS usage. By the end of the day, the Exynos finished with 19%, while the Snapdragon finished with 18% battery left. This is a historical win for Exynos and the first time I see it beating Snapdragon in a real day test. Let's summarize my findings. The image processing of the two phones is now closer. When it comes to skin tones, the Exynos had a slight edge, but in video it was mostly overexposed, losing highlights in the process. Single-core performance is still behind Snapdragon, but in terms of battery life, heating, and temperature, it is now very close to Snapdragon. I bought both of these phones with my own money, by the way, and if you want to support the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to see how these phones compare in a more controlled lab test, watch this video next. Thanks for tuning in to TechMo, and I will see you in the next one.